is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Hello and welcome into another edition of Three Ball. I am John Kurtz, joined as always by Derek Young from K-State Online, Cole Manbeck, former beat writer for the Manhattan Mercury. We're going to talk some basketball today. K-State loses a really frustrating one that they frankly gave away in Lubbock, 60-59, and a little bit of football as well because Chris Klieman was involved in the Washington head coaching search. So was Lance Leipold, obviously. It winds up going to Jed Fish. Big 12 all the way around with that one. Plus, K-State did have a high-profile visitor in this weekend at wide receiver, former Alabama wideout. So we'll break all that down here on the pod today, starting obviously with hoops. But you know that we don't start one of these without thanking our friends at Holiday Distillery. Whether it's 360 vodka or Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon, they've got the spirits to keep you warm. I mean, it's cold as absolute hell outside. I can tell you as a new homeowner learning the lesson of not letting pipes freeze, having a frozen pipe here for a little while, that drove me to want to drink. So if that happens to you, you got to make sure you have the Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon on hand or the 360 vodka. They will hook you up. Great K-State folks who love the Cats and support our pod. So please do support them. All right. Well, if you are a Patreon member, I will shout this out. Patreon.com/3mall. You've already heard Cole and I discussed this game ad nauseum as we did a live post game immediately after the game on Saturday when K-State lost by 1 in Lubbock. So again, patreon.com/3mall if you want access to that and other exclusive bonus content, plus the Discord, which is also very lively this weekend with all the coaching stuff going on with the Washington job open, the Alabama job open. You're getting little tidbits of inside info there on the Discord, basically a big group chat. So it's patreon.com/3mall for $5 a month if you want access to all of that. But man, just a game. Jerome Tang basically said it. I think it was the radio interview with Wyatt that I was listening. He said, we really gave this one away, and then stopped and said, well, all right, look, Texas Tech took it from us. But I would actually go with his first and probably the more honest of the two answers that K-State gave this one away. I mean, they were up 9 with less than 5 minutes to go. Didn't really make a single play down the stretch. And beyond just that, I think if they were just fundamentally sound, block out on a free throw, don't commit a frustration foul, they're probably going to be okay. And they're probably still going to win that game in Lubbock and be 3-0 in Big 12 play right now and have a quad one win. Unfortunately, they did not do those things. Texas Tech did show a lot of toughness down the stretch, albeit with some controversy and the officiating mixed in at the end. But it all was just enough to leave you feeling about as frustrated as possible leaving that one, DY.
They did the things you have to do to lose on the road, unfortunately, down the stretch. You talked about the foul away from the basket. I don't know if that was on McNair or Carter. I think it was one of those two. And, I mean, it's almost underneath your own basket, and they're in the bonus, and it gives them 2 easy free throws. They only make one, but you don't get to rebound, and they get a 3-point play out of that. That sequence was pretty crushing for Kansas State. Without that sequence, as you alluded to, they'd probably win the game, even though they don't play great down the stretch. I don't think they scored, in the last 3 minutes and 21 seconds of the game, so that was problematic. 18 turnovers, that was problematic, even though they did take care of it a little bit better in the second half, I thought. They just weren't. And another Jerome Tang quote that was probably pretty emblematic of how this game unfolded. He said that Texas Tech was the tougher team. They certainly were, and that they were the better, and that Texas Tech was the better team in the final 4 minutes. And they certainly were. And at the end of the day, that game came down to those final minutes. I think what was most frustrating is not just Texas Tech getting those loose balls, and doing so well on the glass versus Kansas State, who's been a pretty good rebounding team this year. It's that Kansas State did secure a good chunk of those rebounds, and they just weren't strong on the ball. How many times did they have it knocked out of their hands just from behind? I think McNair was probably, guilty of that on a number of occasions. I think Arthur Kaluma was as well. David Gasson, the bigs. It was a frustrating way to lose because that is certainly a game they should have won. But, and this thing tends to, find a way to even itself out. There's probably a couple wins this year that Kansas State is fortunate to have as well. So it's like the law of averages coming back to bite them. A little bit of karma doesn't make it feel any better. But, and I know this is kind of big picture stuff that we'll probably get into, Mason folks from KSO as well. you made an observation. It's a good one. Of the Big 12 teams in their first 3 games to start out with 2 games on the road, Kansas State's the only one that's got a winning record. The other teams that played, the majority of the 3 games on the road do not. So now, fortunately, you got to play West Virginia as a struggling team. But guess what? They beat Texas at home, so you don't take that win for granted. You don't take any win on the road for granted. So I think that's a big deal. And we were feeling really yucky about this team about a month ago, maybe over a month ago. And now all of a sudden, they're a hair-pulling out moment from being 3-0 in the Big 12. And obviously, you still like your chances at every game at Brainlage Coliseum, even if the opponent is Baylor in Kansas. So I think this team, despite the frustrating way to lose that one, is also trending in the right direction and is probably making us all feel a little bit better about them and their prospects. Though I do worry about the backcourt depth depending on how long Day-Day is out, because they're already down Quez Glover. And I think part of Tyler Perry's hot and cold that game, I think it was really cold at the end, I think is having to play on the ball for like 38 minutes. I mean, that's tough.
And for a lot of the reasons you laid out is why it hurt so much to lose that game, because you felt like you were in a great position to steal one. Anytime you went on the road, you feel like you're stealing one. And K-State would have already snagged 2 road victories out of their first 3 league games. And to be 3-0 in this league, regardless of who you play, it puts you in a tremendous position. It would have been a quad 1 victory that sticks for the rest of the season. Tech's a top 30 team in all the metrics, including the NCAA net rankings. Actually, I think they fell to 37 in the net rankings recently, but still a win on the road would have stuck as a quad 1. Just have to stay top 75 to be a quad 1 win on the road. So that hurts. And you're up by 8 points with 3 minutes left in the game. You don't make a field goal in the final 3:20 of the game. The only points you score are the Tyler Perry free throws with around 45 seconds left. You go up 2. A couple things that really hurt you guys just pointed out, DY, that the Cam Carter, I think the ESPN play-by-play listed the foul on Cam. It was after he went into the paint and he turned it over. And then they called the foul and it was a 1-and-1. They go to the other end and a 59% free throw shooter makes the front end, misses the second. You have to be ready for him to miss the second. He's a 59% free throw shooter in Warren, Washington. And David Gasson, who's 3rd in the league in rebounding this year, we praised him for his rebounding. He's been tremendous, but he gives up the offensive rebound and gives up a 3-point play and really what turns into a 4-point possession for Texas Tech. They take a 57-51 lead to 57-55 with 2 seconds running off the clock. If you do not make that foul, there's 2 minutes and 35 seconds left in the game when Carter turns that ball over. You're up 6. You set your defense, and K-State's defense had been tremendous in that game. They hold Tech to 36% shooting from the floor overall, 5-25 from 3. If you just go set your defense, make them run 20 seconds, they don't score, you're in a great position to win that game. But they get 4 points with essentially no time running off the clock. And I think that gets to the point. This game was lost on rebounding. You mentioned, DY, they had multiple chances where they had the board. They lost it. There were other issues with the rebounding. K-State's 240th in the country at defensive rebounding percentage, but they're one of the best offensive rebounding percentage teams in the country. They're 12th in the nation there. But for whatever reason, they were not good on the defensive glass. And Tech missed 17 shots in the second half. They offensive rebounded 10 of them. So they got offensive boards on 59% of their misses in the second half. They have 10 boards in the second half on the offensive glass, and they converted that into 12 second chance points. They only had 2 second chance points in the first half, but they get 12 in the second half, and they outscore K-State significantly there. And then obviously in the paint as well. If you look at the shot chart that K-State puts out in its final stats package after the game, K-State went 9 of 11 right around on shots at the rim, 82%. But they went 0 of 11 on other shots in the paint. So a combined 9 of 22 in the paint. Texas Tech went 11 of 15 at shots on the rim, 3 of 10 on other shots at the paint, 14 of 25 in the paint, a far better percentage of what K-State shot. Tech won this game on the interior with their rebounding and their ability to finish on the inside.
And free throws and turnovers as well. I mean, Tech made 15 free throws. Kansas State only shot 7, and turnovers was 18-9.
Yeah, and look, I think David Gasson has been playing pretty good basketball, but it was not his best night. It was, I believe, 5 points and 4 rebounds, and he was the guy that got beat on the box out late. So that's what's tough about it, Cole. I hear you say like they're pretty good. They're typically pretty good. Rebounding is not this huge issue, and maybe some of it is Tech playing at home just had a lot more energy and was better at it. Maybe some of it is they're getting worn down because we talked about it. They've only had a 7-man rotation really, and now Day-Day's hurt. I mean, perhaps just need more bodies to go around, somebody else to step up and be able to steal some more minutes from other, whatever it is. But that's the frustrating thing, is it doesn't feel like that's a huge weakness of the team. They just got really beaten there down the stretch when they needed to be better.
Yeah, there's not a lot of deep teams in the Big 12, though. I mean, KU's not deep at all. I think that's pretty well documented. I mean, Tech had 6 guys play 25 or more minutes, and then the next most was 7. So,
yeah, well, I guess we're kind of, I feel like we're working our way down the list of like, okay, why did this happen? Like, well, whatever, cross that off. I mean, so what is it? What's the deal?
Tech was tougher. Tech was tougher.
Okay. Needing to be better on the road, perhaps, but I don't know. They handled West Virginia pretty well, and they handled the thing that was impressive to me about this game. Really, is that they got punched in the mouth pretty good early because they were so bad offensively, and I had kind of, it's the disappointing part of the entire game. I had just chalked this up to like, okay, it's probably going to be like a 10-point loss. They don't really have it today offensively. It's going to be a frustrating one, and then they go on a 20-0 run, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, this is a game that became very winnable all of a sudden, and then they rip your heart out at the end.
Yeah, it didn't finish well. I mean, but and maybe I'll eat my words a little bit, but there's not going to be a lot of teams that are in that good a position to beat Texas Tech on the road this year, I don't think.
Oh, it's toughest atmosphere. One of the toughest atmospheres they'll play in this year. I mean, you were there, DY. You know, the energy was back in Lubbock. Yeah. They hadn't had that in a couple of years.
It was solid. I mean, it wasn't good as it was, a few years ago. But, I mean, it was probably 90% full. It really got loud. So,
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think fatigue can play a factor. I definitely hear your point, because I made the point to John D-Way on the Patreon pod that Tech had their other 2 bench guys played like 4 and 7 minutes, and then the other was 32. So they didn't have a deep bench either. But it is starting to eat away at Kansas State. That David Gasson plays 33 minutes, and then I think Will McNair played 30 plus minutes too. And for his body, that's a lot with his size to have to go up and down the
33 for McNair also.
Yeah. And then obviously you're heavily reliant on Klieman and Carter. I think the most that K-State's bench guys played was Dorian at 17. And then it was like 4 and 2 from the other 2 guys. So yeah, you need more from your bench, and to lose Day-Day and obviously Glover, and then you're down obviously Tomlin. I mean, that's a lot to put on this, like 3 rotational guys, 3 key guys you're playing without.
And you got to think, like, you had to take Tyler Perry off the ball, or Tyler Perry off the court. You can't play him 40 minutes. When you take him off the ball, there is literally no other point guard on the team.
Yeah, I mean, they're in a really difficult spot because of a lot of things that have been out of their control this year, like injuries and guy getting kicked off the team, and but it is what it is. They've got 10 of the 13 scholarship players to be able to operate and work with right now. I mean, they're kind of in some ways playing with one hand behind their back, and they're doing a hell of a job while having that predicament. So I mean, that's back to Derek's original point in the open. Like, that's a very encouraging thing about where this is going long term, and we can talk more about that. But yes, there are clearly still issues. That does not take away from the frustration. And another huge part of the frustration is the officiating, particularly right at the end of the game. So I do want to talk about that. But I know, we may be let down by the officials. We will never be let down by Home Field Apparel. They are great. Get to homefieldapparel.com and check out the 40-plus options that they have. K-State gear that's up there, old school logos. If you want the old Cat Script basketball logo, my personal favorite, they've got it. So make sure you get to homefieldapparel.com. You can also shop 100-plus other teams if you want to get that gear. And we're hooking you up with the promo code 3MAW23. You get 15% off your first order with that promo code 3MAW23. We are back in just a moment.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
So a couple of things. I mean, I know Cole and I did talk about the officiating quite a bit in the Patreon pod. To me, the most egregious thing is, look, K-State lost the game. They puked it away. I would not tell you that officiating was the reason that they lost, but they did get a little bit hosed with, Toussaint clearly traveled before the and one. Just go to @JL Kurtz on Twitter. I mean, you can see it. It's pretty blatant. He absolutely traveled. And then the last play, when Tyler Perry's trying to put up a shot, and that's another thing I want to discuss, is the calculus behind what they did for the last shot there. But he's trying to put that up. And Cole, if you go to Cole_Manbeck on Twitter, you can see that Arthur Kaluma was set up perfectly for a putback which would have been right about at the buzzer, but who knows, because the idiots let the clock not run, just mismanaged all the way at the end of the game. Yes?
John, I do want to clarify something there, because I'm dedicated, and Texas Tech fans were in my mentions that were saying the clock would have expired anyways. So I actually ran a stopwatch on the play of when the ball was inbounded. I started the clock, and when Arthur Klieman was shoved in the back, there were 1.8 seconds left. 5.7 seconds. Yeah. So even if you wanted to argue this, there would have been over a second left when the foul occurred easily. And the thing that's important to note there is Arthur Klieman was positioned perfectly where the ball came off the backboard. He beat his guy to the spot. That's why the guy, it's one thing if it occurred way away from the play and it didn't have an impact, but he beat Darian Williams to the spot. That's Darian Williams' fault, and he just puts two arms in his back and just shoves him right in the back. It's blatant. But shout out to Antonio Petty, terrific official who missed both calls down the stretch, missed the travel, and then obviously misses the play there with Arthur Klieman. Just a clown show.
Yeah, I was going to say, honestly, a pretty smart play by the Tech kid to go ahead and shove, because right there, it is kind of a chaotic scramble situation. And you're forcing the official to try, and a lot of officials probably are going to swallow the whistle there. Not many are going to be, and this is stupid. We can debate it. If it's a foul, then it should be a foul, whatever. But with 1.8 seconds left in a final shot scenario, you're not going to get many officials to call a foul off the ball that's going to put somebody at the line with the potential to win the game. So I will give it's savvy by Texas Tech. If you get beat, you might as well just do that. And it wound up saving the game for Texas Tech and keeping Klieman from that. But either way, when you see all of that, it's Jesus, dude. Come on. It was pretty bad. DUI, where do you stand on how much of your frustration is based on what K-State did versus what the officiating crew did there?
Probably the 98% still K-State, just because it's about doing smart things, right? Don't make that foul. Don't give up the 3-point play on the missed rebound. Those things are just, you could take the game out of the ref's hands if you play your brand of basketball. They put it in the ref's hands.
I would say two things on that front and echo what DY said. If you just make a play down the stretch in the final 3 minutes, make a shot or two in your half-court offense, or get a defensive rebound, you win that game regardless of what the officiating does. But when you allow it to get so close, you put it more in the hands of officials, and a lot of these guys are really bad at what they do. Like Antonio Petty is a really bad official. And so, he misses a couple of calls, and unfortunately it swings the other way, but it shouldn't have probably been in that position to where they could make a deciding impact on the game as the officiating crew. But look, Jerome Tang was clearly frustrated with the officials. When he made that comment, DY, in the post-game press conference, that thought maybe Tyler Perry could get fouled, but that was a mistake on his end. And I'm paraphrasing because they only shot 7 free throws in the game. Texas Tech shot 25 field goal attempts in the paint. K-State shot 22 in the paint. It's not like K-State was just shooting from the arc. Texas Tech attempted 2 more threes than K-State did in the game. K-State was taking the ball inside, but Tech shot 18 free throws and K-State shot 7. So I think that's part of Jerome Tang's frustration. And you mentioned it's a big part of the game. K-State makes 5 free throws, they make 15. That's 10 points.
That's pretty good research there, man. I could feel you responding to Texas Tech fans in your mentions as you're
I don't know
barreling through all that.
I have no qualms with Tech fans, as you guys know. I love Tech fans. We had a Tech fan subscribe to our Patreon. Shout out to them. But a lot of them just saying it's a flop by Arthur Klieman, stuff like that, or have you not watched Big 12 basketball? They don't call fouls like that. And if it's off the ball and away from the play, I'm totally fine with it. If it impacts the play and a guy's in a position to make the shot, then I have an issue with it, and I expect an official to do his job.
Unfortunately, I do think not many of them, again, are going to make that call in that scenario, it's just kind of a dumb idiosyncrasy of how we officiate sports, but that goes back to the point that you can't leave it in the officials' hands there. And, the other thing, it's been like a feast or famine this year at the end of shot clocks, or the end of a half or the end of a game situation when K-State has the ball and a chance for the last shot. You've had to Tyler Perry heroics, like the Villanova game, obviously, but you've also had a number of times where it's been dribbling it around and it's either a turnover or just a fadeaway, terrible shot. And Jerome Tang did say, I even caught like the radio interview, I believe his like direct quote was, it was naive of him to think that they could get a foul. But that was some of his thinking, was to try and get Tyler Perry in toward the basket to pick up a foul there. And I'm with him. I look, you probably weren't going to get a foul, and I just hate the idea of doing that anyway, man. I mean, Tyler Perry can get you a shot, but if you run some action for him and try and set something up for him, he's just not. I mean, it is what it is. I know KSU_ fans really good about talking about what Perry is and how sometimes we get too frustrated with him because we are expecting him to be Marquise Noel. We're just expecting him to be something he's not, and he has to play so much of the point as opposed to being off the ball where he could just be a sniper and shoot the ball. But that's exactly it. Like, that's not his game. His game is not beating anybody off the dribble. His game is not finishing at the rim. It's not, I mean, he never does either of those things. So that was frustrating to me. I love Jerome Tang. I think he's an excellent coach. I did not love that decision because I don't think that's ever going to be a winning proposition, trying to get Tyler Perry to do anything other than shoot a three, basically. Shoot a jump shot at least in that sort of last second scenario.
Yeah, I just don't know what else to do though. Like, because it has worked sometimes, it hasn't others, and I get the frustration because when it. I mean,
hasn't when has Tyler Perry getting into the paint worked?
I mean, he's what, over 80% at the rim right now, so I think it works.
He is.
I thought so. No,
I don't know. It feels like he struggles at the rim, but I don't
percent from the rim.
I don't know. Like,
he doesn't get to the rim often, but when he does,
he's made 16 twos on the season. But he shoots obviously a high percent. So on 2-point attempts this year, he's 16 of 39, whatever that percentage is. I don't know what the rim breakdown is.
Yeah, I don't know what the rim breakdown is or how they qualified either. But like, well, who's going to do it though? Because you need somebody, and he's the only guard.
Well, wouldn't you want Klieman or Cam?
If it's going to be someone trying to be someone off the bounce, I would think Cam. I'm not saying Cam's excellent at it, but I think he's better than Tyler Perry at it.
Yeah, but then he has to be the one to shoot it because Cam's not going to create or find someone. Like, you're really handicapped in what you can do in those situations.
I think Klieman or Cam could create though.
Kluma's turnover rate's like what?
Yeah, I mean, look, I know they've tried to ISO Klieman into half situations a couple times.
If you're dribbling into traffic, you're asking for trouble as well. You get Cam dribbling into traffic, and you're asking him to take a tough two, which he's done all year, missed a bunch.
Yeah, I just Cam and Klieman are bigger guards, so like I feel like their ability going to the rim to finish.
Cam's 2-point percentage is the worst on the team right now.
No, he takes some bad mid-range twos. No, I mean, look,
you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that, but is there a good alternative?
Let's create a distinction between that though. Cam is a much better finisher this year than he was last year. I'll take Cam finishing at the rim all day over Tyler Perry. All day.
At the rim, Cam is the best.
Yeah, in those situations where you're going to have to go 1-on-3 at the rim, I don't think so.
Well, I mean, look, the officials showed
pass the ball. You know he's not going to pass the ball.
Yeah, the officials showed they're probably not going to call a foul there. So like that,
there's not a good alternative there.
What
alternative is?
To me, Cam driving is a better alternative. Cam driving is a better alternative than Tyler Perry driving. I understand the Klieman concerns because he's shown to be very, very turnover prone in those sort of scenarios. But I would rather have Cam take it in that case. Just me.
I would say that when Tyler Perry released that ball, though, I thought there was a chance it was going in. Obviously, I didn't think it was an awful shot. I mean, it was
I thought it was pretty bad. I mean,
I guess I put myself in the emotions of watching it. Like when he released it, I truly thought it might go in, and like I understand, like he created some space there, floating away. I know, but it was a 9-footer, and of course he didn't hit rim. So now the one thing you do when you have Tyler Perry take that shot is you've got all your size there for a putback. Hint. Arthur Klieman crashing the glass, but when you get decleated, it doesn't, do anything for you. So, because a lot of times those situations what you see is you get the shot up early enough and it's the putback that beats you. And K-State would have had the size there to make the putback because your smallest guy's taking the shot. I know obviously Tyler Perry, we can criticize this as much as we want, but we also probably have to recognize that Tyler Perry is the only reason they beat Villanova with his shot and the reason they beat North Alabama with the shot at the end to send it.
He's also the only reason they got back in the game. I mean, they had that 20-0 run. He had, 14 of the points.
Yeah, so I just want to point out, and I know you know this, John, too, but they win 2 games because of Tyler Perry at the end of games, and you're not going to make every shot. So I'm okay with it. I think it's a good discussion because there are other options too. At the end, I don't have huge qualms with it.
It underscores the predicament that they are in, because your best case scenario there is to have Tyler Perry playing off the ball, run some sort of action for him and try to get him open, but you don't really have a great point guard option to be working that, and now teams will know obviously what you're doing. I mean, I'm not naive enough to think that they wouldn't be able to kind of snuff that out and be like, hey, they're obviously going to try and run Perry off some screens or something and get him open here. I understand. I get it. I didn't love that, and I hope that there's a counter to it, and maybe there is, maybe there isn't. Maybe they'll just say, hey, we're going to live and die with TP doing this every time down the stretch, and they're, Tang's 100-0 in overtime. Like, they have generally been really good in late game situations, or tight games, if you want to put it like that, but it didn't work out this time. Okay, got to tell you about our friends at DraftKings. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL playoffs, bring you an offer that'll help make the playoffs electrifying. New customers can bet $5 on any game and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code KCSN. New customers can bet just $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code KCSN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-7897-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction. Out in Ontario, they're screwed again. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/football for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Okay, so where do we go from here? There are clearly depth issues. Day-Day is going to be out for who knows how long. Jerome Tang said he rolled an ankle. Is that correct, DY? Rolled an ankle? What is your expectation for Day-Day?
Well, in the press conference, I don't think he said what happened or what it was in our press conference between, when we were in there after the game.
Okay, so that was he said. I believe that's what he said on post-game radio. I listened to the post-game radio interview, and I believe that's what he told Wyatt, that it was a rolled ankle.
Yeah, he just told us day-to-day. Day-to-day for Day-Day.
Day-to-day. Just spell that D-A-I, people. Yeah, I mean, I think they can survive in the short term with it, but obviously not long term. They got RJ Jones a couple of minutes. He played 4 minutes. What about, what do we think of Jarrell Colbert? We discussed this a little bit, DY, because we had a question about it in the Patreon postgame. Jarrell Colbert played 2 minutes, and I think the feeling from some fans was like, hey, maybe they should be using him a little bit more. What do you think about trying to get Jarrell Colbert a little bit more integrated?
It's probably not a bad idea just to alleviate some of the stress that is being put on David Gasson and Will McNair. I mean, playing bigs 32, 33 minutes or more a night is tough, but I will say, even though he's had some good moments this year, and to the point where I'm like, okay, he probably should be maybe at least part of the rotation. He went in against Tech and he allowed 2 blow-bys and a foul right away. It was not good. He got taken off the floor pretty quickly because he was making a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, he had a great effort play. They got a loose ball that gave K-State a 3 that Cam hit, I think, on the offensive end. But I do remember the play. He got beat off the dribble and taken right to the rim and gave up a foul. Tech missed both free throws. But yeah, he's got to get lower in a defensive stance and can get taken off the mounts there. But I think they need to give him more minutes. I just don't think you can. I don't think you can play Will McNair 33, 34 minutes a game at his size throughout the course of the season and expect him to continue at the pace that he is. So I don't know. I think Colbert probably needs an increased time. The one thing I will say, guys, is look, we talked about it when you talk about big picture, and we talked earlier about them potentially being off to a 3-0 league start, which would have been tremendous. But Parker in our Patreon on our Discord channel pointed out that K-State currently is number 1 in the Big 12 in net rating in Big 12 play only in 3 games. They're number 2 in defensive rating and number 2 in offensive rating. So, just want to...
Yeah, I mean, it helps when you win your first 2 games by combined 39 points and then only lose by 1. So, plus 38 on the scoreboard, too.
Yeah. So, I mean, the defense has been terrific over I think they're at 30 in... I ran the numbers. I think they're allowing 37% field goal percentage over the last 9 games overall. Gosh, where do I have that? K-State's defense, last 9 games, 197, 534 from the floor, 37%. Opponents from 3 in Big 12 play against K-State, 18 to 69, 26%. So defense continues to rise up the metrics. They're playing really well there. It's just, can the offense catch up?
How confident are we feeling about taking a stab at Baylor here? I mean, they certainly have not been. They are 3-0 in Big 12 play, right? But they have not looked invincible the way that they have played so far this year. They are. I think they're very gettable, especially at home. I guess I'll start with my opinion on it. And the way K-State has been playing, they've been competitive, and I did not expect them to be nearly as competitive as they were in Lubbock. So I feel like there is a legitimate chance here. Are you guys with me?
Yeah, I said it. I think I said it last week, maybe the week before. But any game in Braymond Coliseum, I'll give Kent State a shot. So.
John, what's Ken Palm have for the game? You have that readily available?
That's a good.
Okay, while you do that, I will say ESPN's BPI index has K-State as a 51% chance to win this game. To your point that you mentioned, they went on the road. So Baylor. They played 4 neutral court games in the non-con. They played Duke, Michigan State, and that's a hell of a schedule. They played Duke, Michigan State, they played Florida, they played Auburn. They beat an Auburn team on a neutral court to open the season. I think it was season opener, it was the second game. It was very early, and that Auburn win looks really good. Auburn has been terrific so far this season. They played 4 neutral court games, so they do win on the way away from home at a decent clip. But on the road, true road games, their only true road game this year at Oklahoma State, who obviously is really struggling, and that game went to overtime. So, and to your point, like, I watched them play. I had it on my second TV, watching the Chiefs playoff game on Saturday night, and then watching Baylor-Cincinnati on ESPN. And it was Cincinnati had a shot down 1 with 10 seconds left to win the game, and they missed. But it was in Waco. And the BYU game the week before, the few days before that, it was a tight game down the stretch too. Now, these are respectable opponents, but it just shows that Baylor's been in tight situations in all 3 league games.
Ken Palm has it at a 39% chance to win. So basically like a 4 out of 10 times K-State would win this game. And they have the score 73-70 is what they predict. So, or what are we going to call him? Ken Palm, Mr. Palm.
Kim Pomeroy. Yeah. Big 12 discussion in general, I would say, I don't think they're any good, but I'll pause on judging Oklahoma State too harshly. Now, I think it's going to conclude that they're still not a good team, but both of their road games, I mean, they're getting to the town that the game is in, like an hour and a half before it starts. Like, they've had travel troubles because of the wind and level.
Could they maybe start trying to get there earlier? Like, K-State went a day early in Morgantown.
They did. They couldn't because of travel. I mean, there was a freaking blizzard in Iowa. So, and then
they could have. I feel like you could. I just saw some Iowa State folks talking about, like, they could have driven a day earlier. I think they probably waited too long to try and actually get there. K-State went a day early to Morgantown. K-State went a day early to Morgantown because they were worried about the weather.
Right. Well, Oklahoma State tried to go a day earlier to Iowa. They couldn't go. Well, you want to go to 2 days early? I mean,
guys, guess what?
K-State got there on Sunday for a Tuesday game, didn't they?
Monday.
Yeah. Guys, guess what?
I think they went on Sunday, man. The K-State left for Morgantown on Sunday.
I don't know, but I know what I do know. I got the Baylor breakdown for you guys. You want a few numbers on Baylor? It's more than a few. Number 14 and number 14 team in Ken Palm, their offense ranks 4th nationally. Their defense is 58th. If you recall, last year, defense was a huge weakness for Baylor. They were number 107 in the nation defensively, according to Ken Palm, but had the number 2 offense in Ken Palm last year. Over the last 4 seasons, they've had a top 10 offense in Ken Palm. They were number 8, 2001-22 year. They were number 2 in 2020-21 as well. Their defense, though, took a huge step back. Last year, they had a top 25 defense for 3 consecutive seasons until last year. This year, they've improved some, but as you watch them, they're not great at defending at the rim. Once again, that was their big weakness last year, and so they had some issues there. The thing that stands out, obviously, about Baylor, near 44% from 3 on the season. That is number 1 in the nation. They're the best three-point shooting team to date in the country, but over their last 3 games, which are all Big 12 games, they're 17 of 58 from 3, 29%. And as KSU fan pointed out in our group chat the other day, it's just not, there was an article, it's just not sustainable to shoot at the clip that they're shooting right now. So hopefully that cold spell continues from 3 and they shoot it from under 30% in Manhattan on Tuesday night. Baylor, number 2 nationally in effective field goal percentage at 58%. Not a surprise with their 3-point percentage. They're 6th nationally in overall field goal percentage at near 51%. 47th in the nation at 2-point percentage at 54%. 26th in the country at 9.4 made threes per game. But the reason for that, while they shoot the ball tremendously from 3, they're actually a pretty high volume 2-point shooting team. They're 210th in the country at 3-point rate at under 37%. So in other words, a little more than 63% of their overall field goal attempts come from inside the arc from 2-point range. 54th in the country in free throws attempted per offensive play, 37th in free throws made per 100 possessions. 35th in offensive rebounding percentage at 33%. K-State's number 12 at 36%. Baylor, not a terrific defensive rebounding team, 103rd in the nation there at 75%. We mentioned K-State 240th at 71% in defensive rebounding percentage. If you look at overall rebounding rate, K-State 36th in the country, Baylor 29th in the country. Baylor last year was 301st in the country at defensive rebounding percentage at 70%. So they've taken a big step there. Both very similar in turnovers per possession forced, each at 17.8%. So Baylor's not going to turn you over at a high clip. Baylor 31st nationally in defending the 3 at 29.6%. K-State 123rd. But Baylor's 194th in 2-point defense, giving up at least close to 51% from 2. K-State's 27th in the country at 2-point defense at around 45%. Baylor 306th in opponent 2-point rate. So in other words, opponents shoot 2s against them on nearly 67% of their field goal attempts. So teams are going to try to go in and attack them on the inside. And obviously they've got a lot of talent at guard. Jacoby Walter, the number 9 player in the country in the on-3 consensus, the number 2 shooting guard, 6'5" freshman leading scorer at over 15 points per game, shooting nearly 39% from 3, 43% from the floor overall, attempts nearly 6 threes per game. Last year, they had true freshman Keontae George, who was a top 10 recruit in the country at guard. He was an NBA draft pick this last year. He led them at over 15 points per game, or was second behind Adam Flagler last year. And then Ray J. Dennis, transfer guard from Toledo, second in the Big 12 with 6.3 assists per game, nearly 14 points per game, 53% from the floor, 41% from 3, over 1,700 career points. He's a career 54% shooter on 2s. Only 21% of his career field goal makes have come from 3, so he's going to get on the inside. And Jaden Nunn, a 6'4" transfer guard from VCU. Just a lot of talent at guard, obviously. That's a lot on Baylor, I know, but I had to get that out there for you guys. I did some work on them.
Well, they're always heavy with the guards, man. I mean, they've got a really good backcourt, and they just got a commitment from another. That was a guard, right? The 5-star kid that committed to them over Kentucky and somebody else.
Yeah,
so
VJ Edgecombe, number 5 player in the country, VJ Edgecombe. Huge commitment for them. They've got one of their best classes ever coming in. I think they're currently 3rd in the country in recruiting rankings. 3 top 30 players coming in next year's class that are currently committed to him. I didn't even mention Bez Missy there. I probably mispronounced that. And they didn't have the pronunciation guide on Baylor's website, but he's their 7-foot big man. That starts where he's a true freshman and was the number 37 recruit in the country. He's averaging nearly 10 points per game and 6 rebounds per game, nearly 2 blocks, 65% from the floor. He's from Cameroon. He was actually number 29 player in the country in the 23 recruiting class. I mispronounced that. And Josh Iguana, 6'10" sophomore big from Nigeria, averaging 6 points per game on 80% shooting. If you watch Baylor play, they just throw it up to Iguana and he goes up and dunks it on. He's a rim runner, and most of his shot attempts are alley-oops, dunks, lobs on rolls. So 2 talented 7-foot big men as well. A lot of talent on this team. Didn't even mention Jalen Bridges or Langston Love, who are really good players.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta give it up to Scott Drew, dude. The The guy pulls in a bunch of talent. He's got a really good operation rolling right now in Waco. Thankfully, this game will be played in Bramlage, so we don't have to watch from the Empire State Building and that angle that is in Baylor's new arena, which does look very nice. I think the last point I would make on hoops before we touch just a little bit on football is that, I mean, the good news is if you look throughout the course of the league, like there are 2 unbeaten teams through the first 3 games. Like everybody looks pretty vulnerable, and one of those teams is Baylor. The 2 unbeatens are Baylor, who we're talking about, and how gettable they look. And then the other one is Texas Tech, who you probably should have just beaten. So, I mean, it's just going to be a wild league schedule. Like with what we've seen so far, West Virginia beats Texas, right? Texas now is 1-2. They don't look very good. You've got TCU ripping off a couple of really nice wins. They look good, but Houston's lost a couple of times already. Kansas goes down at UCF and debatably should have lost at home that first game to TCU. So it just seems like it's going to be a really wild ride throughout Big 12 play. And I feel like K-State, what they've shown so far, can go out there and basically beat or lose to anybody in the conference.
Hard to disagree.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's absolutely the case. I mean, talking about TCU, they very easily could be 3-0 with a road win at KU, a home win over Houston, a home win over Oklahoma. They could have 3 top 10 wins in Big 12 play on their resume, if not for what transpired in the last minute in Lawrence. And so, yeah, the league is going to be very hard to predict. And look, Jerome Tang went 2-0 against Baylor last year and Scott Drew. So it'll be and what K-State has lost 2 home games in the Jerome Tang era in Bramlage Coliseum, one being the Nebraska and then the Texas game last year that they had controlled for much of the game. So, yeah, anytime you're at home, you feel like you got a puncher's chance, a decent shot, and the students should be back, and it'll be a little cold getting into Bramlage Coliseum, but the good thing is basketball is heated, so get in there and pack the place, and let's have an electric atmosphere. Should be a good time. I think John and I will be there in our seats, so looking forward to it. And
wouldn't call it warm, but it'll still be about 15, 20 degrees warmer than it's been.
Yeah, it'll be better than what we're having lately for sure. And so, and then, yeah, I mean, how important is this game? Like, this K-State, like, I don't know. It seems like calling it a must win is silly at this point, but they don't have a quad 1 win yet on their resume. And then Oklahoma State's not going to be a quad 1 win. So like you're talking about getting into 18, 19 games in the season. Now Villanova is right on the cusp of a quad 1 win. They could get into that status, but it just feels like you really need some of these high profile wins to start chalking up. You do. And look, USC's on the doorstep of being a quad 3 loss. So that could be a black eye at some point as well. I mean, that team is in really bad shape. And if that falls to quad 3, that's like I said, that's a black eye. So, and yes, it's great that you have the potential to take advantage of some of these. Like you already took advantage of beating UCF at home. You get Oklahoma State twice, and you get West Virginia at home for a second matchup with them. But guess what? Even if you go 5-0 against that, like, it's a weird year in the Big 12 where, like, look, if you go 5-0 against them and get 4 other Big 12 wins, I don't know if that's enough, because 9-9 is usually enough in the Big 12, and I'm not saying it won't be, but that's 5 wins of the 9 that are not quad win.
Yeah,
and Providence, ever since they lost Bryce Hopkins, they've lost 3 in a row.
I've got to interject. I was just about to ask, like, is Providence, is that lost and gone forever? And then I pulled up their Ken Palm while you were talking, and I was like, oh, well, no, they've lost 4 in a row. And Bryce Hopkins is injured, and Ken Palm's predicting that they wind up at 18-13 and sub 500 in the Big East.
And I was just stressing to Cole's point about the quad 1 stuff, because that is important and probably more important than the net ranking. They use net ranking not necessarily to see where you're ranked, but to look at your quality of wins. And that's why, to Cole's point, it kind of matters more this year in Big 12 play who Kansas State beats and what type of wins they do have. Because they didn't get a quad 1 win in non-con. Maybe if Villanova gets in there, but otherwise they didn't. And if 5 of your 9 wins are against UCF, West Virginia, and UCF, I just don't know if that's enough.
Yeah, and Xavier just won at Providence by 20 points, and Xavier was 8-7, and that stung Providence. They dropped 13 spots in the net all the way to 69. They were hovering on a quad 1 win for K-State, but that's not looking like it's going to happen as we're recording, Villanova is about to tip against Marquette on the road. They're like 31 or 32. They got to get into the top 30 of the net for a quad one since it was a home game. So we'll see. I think Villanova has a shot, but yeah, they got to start. They got to knock off some of these teams, which is why the Tech game was a big opportunity that they could have had. But I have to be transparent and candid. I didn't expect K-State to win at Tech. You know, they were 7.5-point underdogs. I didn't really give them much of a shot. So the fact that they were there at the end, I got to give credit to Jerome Tang and the staff and the players for being in a position to win that game.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, 110%. The fact that we are as frustrated as we are by the loss at Texas Tech speaks to the job that they're doing. I mean, it's unreal. And Day-Day Ames, being hurt, I know he hasn't been very good, but even thinner in the backcourt, like they're making some lemonade out of lemons right now with the hand they've been dealt this year.
If you told me Day-Day wasn't going to play, I would have thought it was probably a double-digit game.
And falling behind like 10 early. Yeah, I mean, look, you got a great coach. You got a great coach there. You got a great coach of the football program. And I do want to mention this because I said, if you watch the YouTube channel, Alabama is not the job that you're really going to have to worry about if you're a Big 12 fan, but you're going to have to watch out for the ripple effect of that because whoever gets hired there will probably inevitably there will be multiple Big 12 coaches mentioned. And sure enough, there were 6, in fact, on the initial list from Pete Thamel at for the Washington opening when it came open. Now, the drama as it all unfolded on Sunday was about Lance Leipold of Kansas. And if you listen to Jason Scheer of the Arizona 24/7 site, who I think is as plugged in on Arizona as anybody, he would tell you that Leipold was really the guy that they were pursuing on Sunday. He turned it down, and then it comes to Jed Fish. And I mean, I have no reason to not believe him there, but Chris Klieman was also a name mentioned there. He has a connection with the athletic director at Washington. They overlapped at Northern Iowa together. And so there was reason to be concerned. But I don't know. I'm going to start it by saying this, and then I'll let you guys, you guys are better with the info here. I'll let you guys kind of divulge what you want to, but I will just say this about all that. I know all the attention was on Leipold and Fish. The last 2 coaching carousels should make you appreciate, just take our word for it and maybe, sign up patreon.com/3maw if you want a little bit more. Take our word for it. Like the last 2 coaching cycles should make you really, really, really appreciate Chris Klieman. Like really appreciate Chris Klieman. Someone needs to just remind me when I get frustrated about something during the season, inevitably if there's a stinker in the non-con, remind me about the last 2 coaching carousels and what has happened there and what Klieman has done or not done. And I need to be sure to be immensely grateful for the man because of that. I will just say that much.
Yeah, his loyalty to Kansas State's pretty rare, I would say. Not because usually coaches always listen. Obviously, from all intents and purposes, Lance Leipold was at least listening. I think Chris Klieman, both for Washington this year and Nebraska last year, was certainly had the opportunity to be the head coach in Lincoln or to be the head coach in Seattle and basically just dismissed it with very little to no fanfare. So I continue to think that he has every intention of, finishing his career at Kansas State. The true test would be if Iowa were to open, but anything outside of that, I just don't think there's anything remotely to worry about on that front.
One thing
real quick, I'm just going to say about the Nebraska thing, because I know someone will be like, well, I mean, it was Matt Rule. That was clearly the number one target. If you go read Mitch Sherman, who I think now is with The Athletic, he's covered Nebraska for years. He used to be with ESPN. He did a great write-up in the immediate aftermath of the Rule hiring where he outlined, they tried to get Rule the first time around, and Rule was kind of like, I don't know. And so they had to go away from Rule for a little while. And at that point, that's where Chris Klieman comes in. So if Klieman had been very interested in $7 million at Nebraska at that point, then it probably goes down that road. But Klieman didn't, and then eventually they went back to Rule, made a huge push, and got him. So that's the kind of thing that we're talking about here. Go ahead, Cole. I'm sorry.
Chris Klieman is so well respected in the coaching industry. I mean, all you have to do is point to people thinking Alabama may be making a phone call to Chris Klieman. I mean, Greg McElroy was basically making a pitch, former Alabama quarterback, now with ESPN, for Chris Klieman to get a phone call and to be the next head coach at Alabama. He's very well respected. He's turned down multiple opportunities to go to other programs that are in the so-called Power 2 now, and he's declined them. And the thing that I really respect about Chris Klieman and how he handles this is he hasn't leveraged them like to get more money out of Kansas State. Chris Klieman could be making a lot more money than he currently is.
Like who I felt like you were about to say, Chris Klieman hasn't leveraged them like.
Yeah. There's some other coaches. Yeah,
who would you drop in there that seems to have his school over a freaking barrel, and maybe literally over a barrel where they have no stadium right now? I mean, there's another coach that loves to take that opportunity to leverage the school that he loves so much.
Yeah. I mean, there's no question. I mean, he's in a position where he can do that, and obviously Chris Klieman could do that too. But he has chosen not to hold his school's feet to the fire with this stuff, and because I mean, what you guys saw what Washington paid Jed Fish. We know the number that was out there potentially for Chris Klieman as well, and it was a pretty significant increase. And Chris Klieman didn't go to Gene Taylor and say, "I need you to match." He didn't drag this thing out. He quickly just turned it down without any fanfare. He didn't let the rumors circulate, and so a ton of respect and admiration for how Chris Klieman and his agent handle these situations. And if you're a K-State fan, you should just feel really good that he's turned down some pretty good opportunities, including a team that just played in the national championship, to remain your head coach at Kansas State.
$7.75 million per year is what Jed Fish is going to be paid. So certainly reason to believe that it would have been very much in that ballpark. Now, I guess the other thing to say about that is it does make that non-con look a little easier. I mean, Willie Fritz is gone from Tulane, and now Jed Fish is gone from Arizona. A lot of it with Arizona is going to depend on whether or not they hang on to Fafita and McMillan, their dynamic quarterback and wide receiver combination there, and they'll have to make a hire here pretty quick. But certainly looks better. It makes sense, and it knocks out. It could also knock out who was probably going to be the Big 12 favorite. I mean, you think about the day for Kansas. I mean, if Lance Leipold takes that job, Arizona's still there. Who knows what happens to the Kansas roster? Instead, now they've kept Leipold, and potentially the biggest contender in the Big 12, Arizona, is going to take a massive roster hit with the 30-day portal window now open with a coaching change there. It was dramatic for a reason with everything that was happening on Sunday. If you were on Twitter trying to follow what was going on with that coaching search, so
yeah, no, it's
ripple effects of it for next year.
It's huge that KU was able to retain Leipold because of so many other guys that are coming back that would have potentially entered the portal, and obviously how big he's been for that football program. So it's monstrous for them that they keep him. I was kind of torn on the Jed Fish thing, John, because K-State only has 6 home games next year, and I was kind of looking forward to a top 15 non-con game in Manhattan. And that now, I mean, Arizona, it depends on roster retention. I mean, look, if McMillan, the talented wide receiver, and Fafota enter the quarterback, then Arizona's in a world of hurt. If they could retain those guys, they'll be fine probably. But yeah, they're gonna. If those guys enter the portal, they're going to be some of the most sought after guys in the entire portal time since the windows have opened. So a lot of talent on that Arizona team that were coming back, which is why I think you see the reaction that you see emotionally out of Arizona fans, is because they just had a top 15 year, and this was potentially going to be their best season and so long with everything coming back. I mean, I can understand how hurt they are that their head coach left, because an argument could be made that Jed Fish should have waited one more year, and he could have had a top 10 type season with this group and then really elevated himself and gotten his pick of the litter. Not that Washington's a bad job. It's a good deal for him too.
Yeah, the weird thing about it to me was that Jed Fish is a guy that spent a lot of time in the NFL and would seem like you could definitely have a good job in the NFL. I mean, there I guess good jobs in the NFL open right now. It seems like Jim Harbaugh is about to take one, but could have had a really good NFL job after a huge year with Arizona next season, or he's a Florida alum. And I mean, I can tell you right now, Billy Napier is going to be gone after this year. There's no way Billy Napier is turning that thing around in Gainesville. So I was surprised. I'll be honest. I was surprised that Jed Fish took the job, but they got it locked down. Kudos to Washington. K-State did have... Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, just kind of went through the AP poll, just released Kansas State women's basketball team's number 7.
Hey, finally some respect. Finally some respect around here. Yeah, huge win. Huge win for the K-State women over Texas. I watched the entire thing. Cole, watched the entire thing.
I know you watched the entire thing. It was hilarious to have you in the group chat texting. Which, yeah, by the way,
and you were like, they're hanging with like the number 10 team in the country, and it's like a 3-point game. And if I was not watching that game and just looking at Kurtz's messages, I would have thought we were down by 20.
What do you mean? John was like talking up Zion Walker.
But no, in the first moments, and then all of a sudden,
No, the only thing. No, there was only one. You're way overblowing one message. I watched like the first 5 minutes of the game, and Texas looked much more athletic, and I was just like, and K-State was struggling to get shots off, and I was just like, well. I was like, this doesn't seem that impressive, right? And everyone was kind of like, oh, this is a really good team, just hang on. And then obviously they won the game.
Which you knew because you listened to the pod that I did with Missy Heydrich, color analyst for K-State Women's Hoops. And I know you listened to that. So, because you guys, and that's not a shot at that pod. I'm joking because as you guys all know that listen to Three Maw, these two don't listen to much of my shows that I do independently on the side without them on there. So that's fine. But they jumped 5 spots in the poll, then top 7, because so many teams in front of them lost too. But hey, and Mason renamed our group chat Gap Goat. So we are fully bought in on the women's hoops front. Huge win. Another top 10 win, obviously knocked off Iowa. Still the only team to knock off the Hawkeyes this year. And then hand Texas their second loss on the year. Texas is still number 3 in the NCAA net rankings. So a big win for the K-State women. As they move to 17-1 and 5-0 in league play, go to TCU on the road this week. That'll be a tough contest. If they can win that, they're in a tremendous position to have a shot at winning this league. Baylor's already got a couple losses too. So it's K-State and Iowa State. Iowa State being the surprise that they're 5-0 in the league too. So
are they, what's the national, I mean, look, here again, Mr. Casual here for me, but what's the national landscape looking like? Like, is there a dominant, like, number 1?
South Carolina, right?
South Carolina is number 1, but yeah, and Iowa jumped up to 2. Colorado's number 3.
Yeah, Colorado beat LSU in the non-con, and they just destroyed, I think, Stanford. I don't know if they destroyed, but I think they beat Stanford yesterday.
I mean, and LSU's rough right now, as our producer just said as well. So,
yeah,
but they've been really struggling. They'll probably get it together by the NCAA tournament. They pretty much have everyone back, and then some from last year's championship team. But, I mean, K-State beat the number 2 team in the country on the road, and they're the only team to beat them.
Yeah, so I look forward to when John brings Charlie Cream, ESPN women's basketball bracketologist, on the show, and we'll have him talk about, I'm kidding, I don't want to promise that we'll get Charlie Cream on, but it would be interesting to hear his thoughts. I would estimate K-State's probably a 2 seed right now, and with the women's tournament, like, if you're a top 4 seed or top 16 overall team in the bracket, you get to host, right?
We're going to host, yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, my question goal was going to be, I mean, is this a team that, is this Final Four national championship good?
I don't know. I should have asked that to Missy when I had her on, honestly, and I will probably get her on again. I didn't ask that question.
You need me to do it next time?
It would probably be better. And I let Missy know that you yelled at me for tweeting at her about having her on when you have a phone number. So she laughed. So
okay.
Anyways,
I'm glad. Yeah. No, shout out to Missy. I like Missy a lot. She's really good at what she really good at. What
she's tremendous. Yeah. So we'll get her on again to talk women's hoops. I told her we'd love to have her on again. This team's fun to watch, and they certainly deserve it. One of the best defenses in America.
Is there any Shaz Preston update? Visited from Alabama this weekend. We know he made it. We know that he made it. I laughed. I saw someone, I think it was it on the Discord, Cole, that someone put a screenshot from his Instagram?
I think so. Yeah, they were going into like a gas station.
Yeah. Well, it was him just like standing outside in the freezing cold outside of I was like, dude, it was the gas station. What is that liquor store, like Rickles, that's by the not the laundromat, but where I used to take my dry cleaning, like the dry cleaners that's right there, like by the loo, kind of like by the loo in that little corner with the gas station there. And I was like, sheesh. I mean, look, love that place, and I've spent a lot of time over there, but like, can we get the guy to like a cooler part of town, like something more going on than just standing outside of like the Lou and Rickles and all this stuff? Like, anyway, he was there. He was in Manhattan. He was definitely in Manhattan.
There went the Lou as a sponsor. Damn it.
The Lou is shut down. I don't think it exists anymore.
No, I think they reopened. All right. Don't be slandering the Lou on here. I think they reopened.
I like the Lou. I've eaten a pickled egg there before.
Folks, we need to clarify. We do not know if the Lou is open or closed. So I think they are open, but just got to put that asterisk by it. Maybe let's go have a drink there. We'll go have a drink there.
Correct. We're going to get so many people. If I'm wrong, we're going to get so many people tweeting at me, but I don't I don't think that's correct. I thought the Lou shut down.
For a period of time, I believe so. All right, Saturday, we'll go have a drink there before the Oklahoma State game. You got the doubleheader. We got a gap between the women's game at 1 against KU and the men's game at 6. So doubleheader, get to Bramlage Coliseum on Saturday and join us at the Lou at 4 p.m., hoping that they're open. Don't know the hours or anything. John thinks they're closed.
Are you going to both of them, Cole?
Yeah, I might try it. Admittedly, if the Steelers beat the Bills, I do have Chiefs tickets for the second round game, which would be Saturday if that happens. So we'll see.
Oh God, that's gonna be. Well, that won't be Saturday night, will it? Are we gonna have overlap?
I think it's like 3:30, so it would be. But that's in the unlikely scenario that the Steelers beat the Bills today. Otherwise, if the Chiefs play Buffalo at Buffalo, it'll be a Sunday game.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Anyways, so did we get to Shaz Preston? Like, I think we just argued about the Lou instead.
I mean, he's in Manhattan. I know he's in Manhattan.
He's not in Manhattan anymore. He's not in Manhattan anymore.
Okay, he made it to Manhattan. He made it to Manhattan. That's the point. That's the point. All right.
DY, thoughts?
I picked Tulane.
How dare you? Yeah, it's tough to sell in Louisiana.
Like, you put in a prediction?
If I did, I would pick Tulane.
I mean, John, you saw our group text last night about this, right? Like, do you read the text sometimes? No, yeah, I think he's a Louisiana kid, and I
didn't see this at all. No, when did this happen?
Oh my gosh,
I want to read it right now.
Why do we even? Don't read everything in there, probably. So
I was gonna say, you want me to just start rolling down here? There was. I got to be honest. There was like a really inside baseball in-depth discussion about the roster and transfers and guys moving positions, and I was kind of just like, yeah, okay, all right, okay, I see it now. I see it now. I kind of tuned it out when I was like, all right, look, I love K-State football, but on January 15th, I'm not super interested in a conversation about whether Malcolm Alcorn Crowder is going to play inside or outside all the time.
Would you stop revealing the inside information we're texting about a defensive end potentially moving to D tackle some and rotating? That is, my goodness. I'm going to have to mark that privilege. I'm going to get an attorney in our group chat to make sure that you don't be sharing that. No. Yeah, it's going to be hard.
I'm sorry. It just wasn't doing that much for me, man. When we had Chiefs game, we had the Jed Fish, Lance Leipold stuff going on, like Klieman turning down Washington, like basketball at Texas Tech 1-point game. There was just too much else to be interested in than to really be paying attention to that conversation. Anyway, sponsors are really getting what they paid for today. Shout out to our friends at Holiday Distillery, Home Field Apparel, and good old DraftKings and Ontario. And they probably have to deal with frozen pipes a lot, man. Poor Ontario, frozen pipes and no DraftKings. That's a rough life to live. But we appreciate them. For Nick Springer behind the scenes, Derek Young and Cole Manbeck, I'm John Kurtz. Patreon.com/3maw if you want more of that. Thank you for listening. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon.